The age of industrialization. So, the first important point here is in 1900, a popular music publisher, E.T. Paul, produced a music book that had a picture on the cover page announcing the dawn of the century. This is the first important point. Then, the new words which are given in the side, these are also important. For example, Orient, the countries to the east of the Mediterranean, usually referring to Asia. The term arises out of a Western viewpoint that sees this region as pre-modern, traditional, and mysterious. Second important point is that Britain is the first industrial nation. So, which is the first industrial nation? Britain is the first industrial nation. Then, the third important point is there is a problem with such ideas. Even before factories began to dot the landscape in England and Europe, there were large scale industrial production for an international market. This was not based on factories. Many historians now refer to this phase of industrialization as proto industrialization. So, what is the meaning of the word proto? It is given inside, indicating the first or early form of something. Then the next important point is this was because your urban crafts and trade guilds were powerful. These were associations of producers that trained craftspeople, maintained control over production, regulated competition and prices, and restricted the entry of new people into the trade. Then the next point is in the countryside, poor peasants and artisans began working for merchants. This was a time when open fields were disappearing and commons were being enclosed. The next important point is London, in fact, came to be known as a finishing center. And then the next point is at each stage of production, 20 to 25 workers were employed by each merchant. Then from the coming up of the factory, the important points are the earliest factories in England came up by the 1730s. So the earliest factories in England came up by the 1730s. So this is a date you have to remember. Then the first symbol of the new era was cotton. So what was the first symbol? It was cotton. Then in the third paragraph we can see that then Richard Arkwright created the cotton mill. So who created cotton mill? Richard Arkwright created the cotton mill. Then the next important point is they concentrated their attention on the mills, almost forgetting the bylanes and workshops where production still continued. So these were the important points in the introduction. Then in before the industrial revolution and in the coming up of the factory. So now for the pace of industrial change. The pace of industrial change, here important points are that the most dynamic industries in Britain were clearly cotton and metals. Then even in the end of the 19th century, there are still less than 20% of the total workforce was employed in technologically advanced industrial sectors. Textile was a dynamic sector. So this is the next important point. Then technological changes occurred slowly. This is another important point. The next point is James Watt improved the steam engine produced by Newcomen and patented the new engine in 1781. Then, at the beginning of the 19th century, there were no more than 321 steam engines all over the England. Of these, 80 were in cotton industries, 9 in wool industries, and the rest in mining, canal, and iron works. Then, the next important point is that historians now have come to increasingly recognize that the typical worker in the mid 19th century was not a machine operator but a traditional craftsperson and laborer. So, I have said the important points of the first part of the chapter, that is uh, before the Industrial Revolution. The second part is hand labor and steam power. Please subscribe my channel and press the bell icon so that you can know when I publish when I will publish the video on hand labor and steam power. So the these are the important points. I have told these important points from the book only. If you can see and uh, note down the points, then you can note it down in your book only by marking the points. Thank you. Have a nice day ahead.